I think we'll go ahead and get started. The door's closed, tray tables upright position, so I guess that means we can take off. My name's Chris Carlson, and for a little bit this morning, we're going to talk about the new features in System Platform 2014. It's been out for a little while now, came out the first part of the year. There is a patch available for it, so we've kind of got some mileage with it. So we'll talk about the new features in the different components. Just to kind of get us up to date where we are now, go back to the 2012 R2 release. A couple of changes, mainly to, I guess, what I would call plumbing. The mechanism in which data is pushed from App Server into Historian. There's some new guts in there to push data, and also multi-galaxy, the ability to tie different galaxies together. So that was in the 2012 R2 release. Then last year, and this is a little bit unusual for Wonderware, they released an extension called InTouch Access Anywhere. So this is an add-on piece. And I'm going to talk about InTouch Access Anywhere as kind of a new feature of 2014, but you can get it for 2012 R2. It was actually released and is supported on 2012 R2. So InTouch Access Anywhere. And that brings us up to now, 2014. What we're going to talk about in the different programs, InTouch, a lot of graphic additions. Historian, some changes to how we can store alarms and events. App Server, we won't talk a lot about kind of some of the tuning things, but some improvements to some of that underneath plumbing. And then templates, some changes to the script editor, some enhancements there, and some enhancements to alarms. And of course, updated support for operating systems. So let's dive into InTouch first. First thing we'll talk about is this InTouch Access Anywhere piece. And again, this is available for 2012 R2, not just 2014. So what is this thing called InTouch Access Anywhere? It's the ability to look at InTouch screens through a browser. Any HTML5 compliant browser. So there's no Silverlight, there's no ActiveX, there's no Java, there's no Flash. You don't need to install any of that on the browser. You can view InTouch screens unmodified. So that opens up a lot of different things. You can look at it on tablets, you can look at it from Linux machines, you can look at it from smart TVs, basically anything with an HTML5 compliant browser. It runs on top of Terminal Server, so this InTouch Access Anywhere is a product, a software component that you're going to install on a Windows Server operating system running the remote desktop or Terminal Server role. Give you an idea kind of in the architecture what it looks like. So I've got some AOS nodes, I've got some InTouch users in here. Here is my Terminal Server running InTouch. I have the InTouch Access Anywhere installed on that machine as well. Now our users can access it through their browser. This shows a firewall right here. This is another implementation. If you want to VPN in, the InTouch Access Anywhere is actually two installs. One is the regular InTouch Access Anywhere server that runs on top of terminal services. If you choose, and you don't have to set it up like this isn't certainly a requirement, but if you want to set up a server in the DMZ of your network, there is a gateway software component that you can install. So what happens is you come through the firewall, HTTPS, port 443, so it's SSL, and then through your inside firewall through, here we're showing port 8080, but it could be any port, you can configure it. This we have running out on the floor, this implementation right here, so if you want to kind of see what the nuts and bolts look like, we've got that running out at one of the tables. So what is this InTouch Access Anywhere? Basically, it's a translation layer that sits on top of remote desktop. So from inside the firewall, kind of administration, setup management-wise, it's just like administering terminal server. Think of it like that. From the outside, it's just browser outside the firewall. So we talked about some of the requirements, server class OS. The other thing to mention, on your terminal server, InTouch Access Anywhere, it doesn't cost. You don't pay an extra fee to get that license. What you need are InTouch concurrent licenses running on your terminal server. So you could have InTouch concurrent read-only if you just wanted read-only access through the browser, but they do need to be concurrent. So if you're not sure what you have or you need help with that, get hold of one of us or your sales guy. We can help you figure out what kind of licenses are on there. List of browsers, again, Wonderware has not tested every browser combination on every phone, tablet, all that kind of, all those different permutations. There'd be a whole bunch of them, but there's the ones they've tested. And again, anything that's HTML5 compliant. Setup-wise, pretty easy. Install it on the terminal server. You run your application once in the console. It's got to get some things set up. So you run it once from the console, and then you can hit it from the browser. When users hit that computer from their browser, they get a splash screen. So you can select applications. There's some customization you can do here if you want to change the splash screen, kind of get people directed to the right place. So, InTouch Access Anywhere, one new piece for 2014. Another big addition to InTouch came in the area of graphics. For those that were here last year, Alex did a seminar on situational awareness graphics. Wonderware has now provided a pretty substantial library of graphic symbols in 2014 if you choose to use the situational awareness, high performance HMI kind of graphical paradigm. So here's an example screen with some of the symbols. This particular screen, none of those graphics in there were created by hand. All those are symbols in the symbol library. There is a bunch of them in there. There's one of the alarm ones with a meter object. Some more examples of different types of meters. There's a lot of symbols in that library. Here's not a fully expanded view, but it kind of gives you an idea of the number of symbols. I wasn't able to expand them all the way and still fit them on one screen and have it look halfway decent. A lot of symbols, a lot of new symbols added for the situational awareness graphics. Another addition to graphics are element styles. A little hard to see on this screen, but over here in the property panel, there is a new line called element style. So, what's this element style thing? Built in to the default Galaxy, to the IDE basically, there are a number of element styles. For example, I can have a piece of text on the screen, and I can apply a label element style to that. And that maybe describes the font, what font size I want, what color, is it bold, is it italic? That element style is global. It applies to the whole Galaxy. So if I apply that element style to different pieces of text in that Galaxy, they will look the same. If I make a change to the element style, the label element style, it will globally change all that text in my Galaxy on my screens. So it's a way to kind of get some, you've probably done something similar to this with custom properties on graphics, kind of to some degree. Some of you probably have. Well, this is a way, Wonderware kind of saw how people were using that and then kind of extended it, made it global, made it a lot easier to use. They come with some different color palettes, or themes, if you will, for element styles. And again, these color palettes are kind of that situational awareness, high performance HMI style, kind of the muted type graphics. You can export these, you can change them, you can import them, you can create your own. So these are available for you to customize. Another addition to graphics is the symbol wizard. If you've done any orchestra graphic development, you probably got some graphics where you've got a valve or you've got a pump, and you tried to cover every different permutation of how you're going to use that pump on a screen. Is my outlet going to be on the left, on the right? Is it going to be vertical, horizontal? How do I account for all those in one symbol? Lights are a good example. We've got all these lights in the orchestra symbol library, but really there's color and bezel width for these two choices. So, example of the symbol wizard using a bar graph. If I want to account for the different ways to show that bar graph, I can have some choices. How many bars do I want to show? What color do I want to show the bars? So in the symbol editor, there is now a new pane for the symbol wizard. And what you do when you build a symbol wizard is you define choices or options. So in this particular case, I've got an option for the number of variables that I want to show, 1, 2, 3, how many bars, and what color I want them to be. Then I define layers, and I use rules to define what layers are going to be shown based on the choices that a user selects. It's a little bit, it sounds kind of complicated. We can show you more in depth out there. I won't try to turn you into symbol wizard experts here, but you can define those. Then here's an example of one of the situational awareness graphics with a symbol wizard. Now over here in the property pane, I get some wizard options. So we blow this up a little bit so you can see it, and here are my choices. So a good use case, kind of a typical use case would be maybe you've got some engineers that just work on the standard graphics and they can build the symbol wizards. And then maybe you've got some engineers that just do the screens and they don't have to know how to build the symbol wizards. They can just take advantage of the options that you've picked for them. And these can get quite complex. They can handle a lot of different options. Wonderware used the symbol wizard extensively in the new situational awareness graphics. And there are some in there with 40 different layers. They're quite large. It's good education to kind of go through and pick apart how they did them, but it's a very powerful tool. There are some new animations in graphics. You may remember this symbol. This is the polar star, one of the situational awareness symbols. And really, to be able to do that effectively, they came up with this new animation, point animation. So I could animate how a point moves around the screen. So when we were kind of in the tech group at Logic, when we were first kind of taking this stuff apart and playing with it a little bit, what's one of the first things that came to our mind with animating a point moving around the screen? Free Oklahoma Joes to the first person that writes asteroids as an orchestra graphic. So, but there's a caveat. We at Logic, we have to get a copy of it for research and development purposes. So, cool use case for that one. Another animation in the graphic editor is the alarm border. Again, this is one of the high-performance HMI kind of paradigms. Certainly don't have to, you can certainly use it without implementing all the high-performance HMI theories, so to speak. But it's a border around objects, not just rectangular, we're just showing rectangles here, but it'll go around whatever type of object you have. And you use the element styles that we talked about a couple screens back to choose your colors, to choose the hatching, the type of border, and you can choose different symbols for what you want to show for your alarms. But it's a way to get kind of a consistent alarm look and feel throughout your application. So, alarm border. A sweep angle animation, so like for RPM meters, building pie charts, another new animation. This isn't an animation per se, this is a new graphic element. This is, I really like this one. This is the trend pen. So it's a very lightweight trend, and it's meant so that you can place a bunch of them on one window or one graphic. It's not meant to be a big fancy historian client thing. You don't right click on it and save data to a CSV and get all the options you can get in a historian client. It's meant to be a very lightweight style of trend. So again, one of the high performance HMI things, try to give an operator good information. Show him where the tag's been, where it's at, and where it's going. So this is one of the tools to do that. When you combine it with one of the meter objects, it makes a really nice trend tail off that meter. Real visually effective for showing where it's at, where that point's at. You can also configure it, you can tie it to a historian tag, or you can just tie it to just a tag that's not in historian. If it's not in historian, then it will start generating when you show the screen. If you're using a historian tag, then it's always there. Another tool in the graphic editor is this graphics performance indicator. So there's a new button on the toolbar. At the bottom, it'll show you this GPI index number. It's a number that tries to tell you how heavy your symbol is. How slow is it going to load? Higher numbers are better, lower numbers are worse. Just tries to give you an idea of the speed with which it will load in Window Viewer. So, lots of graphic additions to InTouch. We'll talk about Historian. Again, I mentioned at one of the beginning slides, in 2012 R2 there was some changes to the plumbing, so to speak, between App Server and Historian, the way that data is pushed. And no changes, however, to the way alarms and events were stored. In 2014, you can now use the same plumbing from 2012 R2 to store alarms and events. HCAL, HCAP are the abbreviations for it. So, great. What does that do? No Alarm DB Logger Manager in 2014 when you're using App Server. So that's pretty cool. Configuration's easier. It uses the same configuration that you have on your engine. So when you configure an engine, you tell it what historian you're going to use. The alarms and events will store to the same one. So configuration's easier. In the IDE, there's the checkbox whether we want to store them or not. I'll talk more about those severity things in a little bit, but just to highlight that checkbox of where things get stored. So configuration, great. No Alarm DB Logger Manager, that's great too. We get redundancy with them now. Because of that, the plumbing change in 2012 R2, that gave us redundant historians. Well, now that our alarms and events can take advantage of that same plumbing, we now get redundancy. Redundancy with alarms along with our redundant historical data. Alarm DB Logger Manager didn't go away, however. For standalone InTouch, you're still going to use Alarm DB Logger Manager. if your existing infrastructure, if you've got some back-end applications, some back-end reporting that's using the SQL Server database from AlarmDB Logger Manager, you can still retain all that in 2014. 2014 does not force you to use this new method. AlarmDB Logger Manager will still be there if you need to use it. Another improvement in Historian, 2 million tags in a Tier 2, so scalability improvements. Now, I don't know how many people in here have 2 million tags in their Tier 2 database. I'm guessing not very many. But really, the takeaway here is, even if I've got a 1,000 tag or a 5,000 tag Historian, Wonderware continues to work on the storage engine, the retrieval engine. They're still making improvements, improving scalability. So even if you don't have 2 million tags, you can still get some of the performance benefits. Another addition is Historian in the cloud. They have an online edition of Historian. So this would be a Tier 2 database. You're not going to hook your PLC directly up to this Historian. It's meant to get data from Tier 1 Historians. And really, the use case is a corporate reporting. You've got multiple plants and you want to report corporate-wide. So now you can have subscription-type reports, cloud-based. So just a quick summary slide of some of the additions in 2014. One caveat, Historian client 2014, still only 32-bit Office. So before you go provisioning a bunch of machines with 64-bit Office, 64-bit OS is no problem. 64-bit Office, not for Historian client. So we've talked about InTouch, we've talked about Historian, let's talk about App Server. So in both the InTouch and in Historian, we mentioned alarms. So there's also an alarm component on the App Server side to tie this together. We saw this dialog box in the configuration, turning on the historization of our alarms and events. And again, these are kind of the high-performance HMI kind of theme. Right now in Wonderware, you get 999 different priorities for alarms. And what the thought here is, there is a way that you can now filter those priorities down into 4 different severity levels. Again, this is not something that you have to do in 2014. It is a tool there that you can use. So here's an example of where maybe a severity 1 alarm, that's something I have to respond to within 5 minutes, maybe it's 10 minutes, whatever it is for different plants. But I can break those up into different severity levels. I can choose what icon gets displayed with each severity level. Remember the element styles that we talked about in InTouch? Those are used to configure the colors and the type of borders you're going to use around your alarms. And then to tie that together, here's that new animation, that alarm border animation. Here's the little symbols that I configure on the dialog box in the GR. Here's my styles that affect colors and how the borders are going to look, how my alarm text is going to look. And then on the App Server side, these can tie automatically to some new alarm attributes that are on objects. So these new alarm attributes, and this is small, this is hard to see, but one of the new attributes that comes on objects, area object is a good example. Alarm counts by severity. So right here, this is one of the symbols that you can drop in there. This shows I have 11 low severity alarms in this area. I have 3, maybe that's a 5, critical alarms in that area. So one of the new attributes is alarm counts by severity level. I get my highest severity level that's unacknowledged, my highest severity level that is acknowledged. So some different alarm attributes that you can take advantage of. Alarm client, Look familiar? The alarm client we know and love. These are some alarm clients you can take advantage of. Here's a nice tabbed one, area browsing on the right. This is when you're tying to historical alarms. And then for current alarms, again, there's that summary, taking advantage of those new attributes on objects where you can summarize alarms for operators. So, lots of additions to alarms in 2014. Again, you do not have to use those attributes to use 2014, not forcing you into changing the way you do alarms if you upgrade to 2014. It's there for you to take advantage of if you want to. Some other additions, you may have noticed on, like when I showed the situational awareness, see this new little yellow symbol right here, and it may be a little hard to see on the window. That's actually a lock symbol. So one of the ways to kind of promote standards, you can now create an object, create a graphic, and export that as a protected symbol. Then I give that to you, you import it into your Galaxy, it shows up with that lock symbol. You can't modify it. You can create derived templates off of it. You can create instances of it. You can go in and look at it in read-only mode, but you've got kind of a gold copy of that object that's not changeable. Now, it's not password protected. It's not meant to be an intellectual property type protection thing. Don't put your fancy algorithm in the object and expect it to be hidden from anybody's view. That's not what its intent is. Just meant to be a gold standard, something that you can't change, but you can derive from. In 2014, patch 1, in the patch that was released, there is an OPC UA client that's available. And without getting into lots of OPC, OPC UA, a little more network friendly, a little bit easier to get through firewalls. It's not reliant on underlying DCOM. We have in our GE RXI PLC, there is an OPC UA server. So I can now take this OPC UA client in my Galaxy and connect it directly to the PLC. No DA server, no driver in between. So OPC UA client that's now available. Some scripting enhancements. This one's really cool. There's now type ahead. So when you start typing in me dot, it's going to give you a list of the attributes on your particular object. Really, really handy. Big time saver. The type ahead also works when you're configuring custom properties on graphics. So now instead of having to hit the ellipsis and go browse for your attribute, you can just start typing and it will find it. Very cool. Multi-level undo and redo, new line numbering, some of the little more consistent colors in there in the script editor, so some really cool enhancements to scripting. There's also now try-catch blocks. So if you're familiar with kind of .NET programming, there's now try-catch for error handling, a little bit more graceful way to handle errors in your scripting. Some little miscellaneous things in App Server. User account control, you can have that turned on. Machine rename, and I probably should have put an asterisk by this. Caveat, you can rename a machine before you run the configurator, before you run the IDE. What this was meant for was if you're provisioning a bunch of machines, you know, like you're rolling out a bunch of VMs, so you want to do your installs, do some cloning, and then do some machine renames. That's really what it was for. This does not mean your AOS box that you've had out there running for 6 months that you need to change the machine name on, still a no-no. Please don't do that. And along that same line of kind of rolling out installs, there's some silent install scripts examples on the install media. So you can do silent installs, play with the different options when you want to do, you know, if you're getting ready to roll out a bunch of machines. Security-wise, the orchestra user can be a non-interactive user. Operating system updates. Support for XP 2003, 2003 R2, 2008. Since Microsoft has dropped, the XP 2003, those are no longer supported in 2014. In 2014, Windows 7, Windows 8, 8.1 with 2014 patch 1, 2008 R2, 2012 R2. So those are the operating systems that are supported with 2014. And that's some charts from the README with all the reference SQL Server, got some VMware references there too, so that's all available to look at when you're trying to figure out what OSs to do. There's a new license manager. When you do an install, you will see a new Invensys license manager. Notice that the classic Orchestra license manager is still available. This new one is not something that you're being forced into use. You can still use the old one. But what it is, it's a little better, little cleaner user interface. Gives you the ability to handle multiple license files for multiple machines. So it lets you store your license files in one location and you can push them out to different machines. What this is not, this isn't like a license server per se, like what you're used to with information server or historian client. It's not, you don't check in and out licenses, so to speak. It's more of a way just to keep your license files organized. Think of it that way. A little bit better user interface. So, lots of new things in 2014. This is as far as releases go, there was a bunch of new stuff in 2014. A lot of stuff to keep track of. We've covered 40 minutes, tried to hit the high points. So, to dive deeper, of course, the README file has descriptions of these new things. There's also a nice 200-page PDF, so it's reasonably meaty without being too awful big, that covers the new features in 2014. About half of this, what I really like about this is it goes through the new situational awareness graphics and describes what a lot of the custom properties are. So if you want to get in and start playing with some of those, start tearing them apart, good resource to have. So that's where we're at right now. Coming down the road a little bit, and again with software development, we don't know exactly what this list looks like, but looking out, we've got Symbol Wizard on graphics. We'll probably see an Object Wizard, so we'll see that same wizard type functionality on the object side, one of the new things. Just continue enhancements to the graphics. Different ways to do windows, so just a little preview of what's coming down the line. So that's it for me. Any questions? We've got lots of these new features showing out there on the floor, so if you want to get in detail and look at some specifics, the Symbol Wizards or the InTouch Access Anywhere, we've got that running out there if you want to dive in deeper. So with that, I guess you would consider it a 2014 new feature. I'll introduce Larry Clausen to talk about Schneider. I'll let you have that.
So again, Larry Clausen, I'm with Wonderware proper. I just it's going to be really brief, share what's going on. Number one, I assume all you guys and gals are Wonderware customers or looking at Wonderware, so thank you very much for your business. We really appreciate it. Wonderware's been around for many, many years now. We have thousands and thousands of customers across the country and the world, and we really, really do appreciate your business. Over that history, for some of you that have been around a while, Wonderware started out as a small company in a garage 25 years ago. We became an Invensys company and have been for a number of years, I suspect you're familiar with. And then just this last year, all of Invensys was bought out by Schneider Electric. So my objective today is just kind of let you know, you probably heard about it, maybe you didn't hear about it, but just let you know really that that's going on and what it really means and answering questions that you guys may have. So internally, we're really excited about it. From an employee perspective, we think it's going to be a very good thing. And one of the biggest reasons why is because we think it's going to be a really good thing for our customers. Wonderware historically has invested a lot into R&D. Somewhere close to 15% of sales go back into R&D to continue the development of things like Chris was sharing today. That was one of the big things we're like, wow, where's Schneider stand on this? That's a pretty big percentage if you look at industry trends. Where does Schneider stand on this? And we're going to continue to get that level of investment or greater moving forward. So that was certainly key to us and key to, we think, you guys. So in terms of future capabilities, we have the roadmap. It's very in its early stages, but we're going to continue with all the things that we plan to do. We're going to add to that some of the integration with a lot of the other Schneider products and companies to just add additional value for our customers, particularly those that have other Schneider equipment. But if you don't, and you know, Wonderware's been known over the years that we don't care if you have Allen Bradley or Siemens or Modicon or whatever. We're still not going to care from a hardware perspective. However, you know, we're owned by Schneider, and we're going to add some connectivity and interfaces to make that just cleaner than it has been in the past. I think a good message is that I'd want to hear from you is, from a day-to-day perspective, nothing really needs to change for you guys. Your relationship with Logic is going to stay the same. What they're going to do in terms of representing Wonderware is going to stay the same. When Schneider was looking at purchasing all of Invensys, I mean, Wonderware was kind of a big shining star in that, with the success that we've had in software. And within that, one of the things that was recognized as a great value of Wonderware is our channel, is our path to market. You know, Logic in your case, and we have just 9 distributors across North America. And I mean, Chris, I think, did a great job here today, and that's the kind of thing that our channel partners do, and there's no expectation that's going to change. So one of the other things that, you know, whenever a company is acquired, there's always concerns about what's, you know, who's going to have control, what's going to happen, where things are going to go in the future. The individual, Ravi, who ran Wonderware and the software division of Invensys, is now running software for Schneider Electric. It has a software division that Wonderware is in, and he's going to be running that. So that is just another message around the consistency of things moving forward in a very positive way, a proactive way for Wonderware, and more importantly, our Wonderware customers. So, as I mentioned earlier, the biggest change that you'll probably see, and this is going to evolve over time, is really just the connectivity and the interface. And from being a Schneider company now, we can offer a full suite of solutions for our customers, not just the software part. So if that makes sense for you or your business, that's one of the things that, you know, was of interest to Schneider, is because this was kind of an area they didn't have, I think, a full offering for. That's really it on the Schneider thing, but any questions or concerns or things you guys have heard about out there that you want to get clarification on?
Is Citrix going to stay separate, or is that something that's going to be pulled together? There's some similar software packages that Schneider has?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Nothing's going to happen in the short term. Some of those roadmaps aren't fully defined in terms of where things are going to fit together, but certainly I can tell you there's plans to continue to support all the different software packages that Schneider has moving forward. How those there is some things that are happening on for example, with our system platform, to be able to integrate some of the other Schneider packages to the system platform to make it a fully integrated system. So that just kind of shows more of the support for that integration, an example of it. Other questions? Yeah.
So the technical support strategy looks to be unchanged for the future?
Yeah, no, I've heard of 0 changes in that regard. But, and also, by the way, if you have any feedback or suggestions, I mean, it's a state of flux for us, and we get listened to back corporate. And if you guys are the customer, that's who we really care about. If you have suggestions or thoughts or input on what you think would be good for you or your business, I'll be out there in the Wonderware area. Please bring them to me, and they'll be listened to for sure. So great. Well, again, thank you all very much for your business. Appreciate it.